Hey guys, welcome back to Wheel Power Garage. Today I'm working on a 2019 Subaru Outback and I'm going to show you how to install a trailer hitch. I'm going to be installing a trailer hitch from a company called TrailerJacks.com. It's pretty straightforward to install, especially on this thing. There's a lot of room here. The only complicated thing I'd say I'd have to do is I'm going to have to just lower the exhaust. It's just held up with a couple of rubber donuts. Pretty easy to do, especially if you lubricate them. Should come down relatively easy. There are a few holes that I need to drill that are kind of big, if I remember correctly, looking over the instructions quick. They're about 1.5 inches in diameter. And they're basically just access holes into the frame so you can get in the hardware that's going to hold the hitch into place. But this is a no-cut hitch, meaning you don't have to cut the bumper out or anything. There's nothing else that has to be cut aside from the heat shield. There's a little small section, basic tin snips should just get that cut out of place. But it is a relatively straight install. Again, I'm on a lift, but you can do this on your back on jack stands and a floor jack. Some of the other things that I'm also going to be installing, the kit comes with the complete wiring harness for the 2010 through 19 Subaru Outback. So it's really just a plug and play harness. The other thing that I'm going to install is a trailer brake. That way, if you have a large trailer, up to 4 axles, I believe, you can have the electronic brake control for that as well. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the exhaust, remove the heat shield, and start marking out the holes that we need to cut out to gain access to. Okay guys, before we get started here, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of everything that comes in this kit. What you can see here is the actual hitch. Comes all nice powder coated, nice heavy duty. You also get the brake controller. You get the dual port trailer hitch light plug with a bracket, which is always nice. Not everyone gives you the bracket, and that's why you see everyone with their cables dangling around. Here's the trailer wiring kit specifically for this Subaru Outback. This is what's going to make it easily plug and play so you don't have to splice into anything and worry about your wiring down the road. The hardware bag to mount the hitch, and it comes with a 2-inch drop receiver with the ball there, which is pretty nice considering these are pretty penny to begin with too. And then here, this is the wiring kit for the brake control. So as you can see, it's a pretty complete kit. Okay, so a close-up look at the exhaust. Here's one of the donuts I was telling you that holds the exhaust up. Not too fancy to it. There is usually, it's a little hard to show up on camera here, but on the end of it, there's sort of like a mushroom part of the bar. And if you put a little lubricant on there, you can usually pry it off of there relatively easy. So we have that one there. There's the one on the opposite side of the muffler. And then just by the differential, we have another one here. And follow along the exhaust. The exhaust is held up with a bracket here. So I'm hoping just from removing these 1, 2, 3, I'll have enough access. Anytime you have to remove exhaust hardware, they have a tendency of wanting to break. So I really want to avoid it. Hopefully I can just get the exhaust down enough to be able to get the hitch into place, because the hitch is going to attach to that part of the frame rail there and this part of the frame rail here. So, like I said, first thing first, let's drop this exhaust down. All right, there's a close-up of the exhaust hanger mounts. Like I said, you can see it's a little bit mushroomed there. That's to retain the rubber donut, as it's known. It's really just rubber. Used a little silicone spray on here, but basically anything you have, WD-40, something to lubricate that so you can just pop it off. I got a pry bar behind it, knocks right off. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I got to remove the heat shield. These are 10mm bolts. 4 of them. Gonna remove that. I'll have to double check the instructions again to be sure, but I believe this is the shield that's going to have to be notched out for the hitch install. But once we get this out of the way, I could then have clear access to the frame rail on this side, and we can mark the holes where I need to drill the access holes, both on the driver's side frame rail as well as the passenger frame rail. Okay guys, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to remove the rubber plugs from the frame rails on both sides, both driver and passenger side. This is where the hardware is actually going to go through to mount the hitch. And the instructions call for, from the furthest forward hole where the heat shield is mounted, we're going to measure 2 inches back, and we're going to drill 1 1/8 hole through the frame rail. The purpose of that hole is so we could fish in the hardware to get into these two locations. We have to do the same thing on this side. On this Outback itself, it does not have the dual exhaust. Nonetheless, this is the same hole location. So from here, we're going to measure 2 inches back, drill our 1 1/8 hole, and again, we're going to remove both plugs here. So that's the next step I'm going to do, is I'm going to mark out my hole. I'm going to center it all nice. I'm going to cut this out with a hole saw. And then I'm going to try to fish in the hardware. That's probably going to be the most difficult part of this whole install. Okay guys, at this point I just want to give you a quick overview of the instructions here. I have to admit they're a little confusing. Maybe it's just because I like to look at pictures. But the pictures and the way they have it worded is a little confusing. So I'm going to try to go through this without confusing you or myself. This is the hardware that comes with the kit. These are actually pretty nifty. These are to fish the wires through the holes, so the coils here will fit around the bolts, and we'll be able to fish this through the hole locations where the rubber plugs were. This is the location of the hole we just drilled, at 1 1/8 hole. That's what we're going to use to be able to pass the bolt through. You can see in this little picture here, it's basically what we're going to do. Since the frame rail is tapered too, the shorter or the plate that's not as long, and again I don't know what these lengths are because in the instructions here it says 1 by 2, so I'm assuming it's 1 inch by 2 inch, are going to go through the rearmost hole, and the 3-inch ones are going to go in the forward holes. So I'm going to set up all 4 of these bolts, these carriage bolts, into the plates and fish them through the holes. Okay guys, so as you can see, with that really neat fishing wire that comes with the kit, I've got the bolts all into place. It suggests leaving the wire attached to the bolts, and I can assume for good reasons when you're trying to put the hitch into place. Last thing you want to do is knock this bolt up, especially the one here where it's a pretty good distance from our access hole. Same thing with this side, got both of them on there. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to get this hitch lifted into place. The rearmost hole is just going to get the serrated conical washer and the nuts. So we're going to install this loosely first. That way the front of the hitch can set down just a little bit. And the reason for that is they want you to install a small flat washer between the frame rail and the hitch itself. This is the washer that comes with the kit. Basically, we're going to sandwich it between the frame rail of the car and then the hitch itself before we install the nut. This is the serrated conical washer that comes with the kit as well, and that's what's going to go on that side before we put on our nut. So from here, I'm going to set up the camera and I'm going to get this hitch lifted up into place. All right guys, as you can see, I've got the bolts up. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to center all these mounting holes for the exhaust heat shield. Like I said, this one does not have the dual exhaust option, but I still want to use these as guide holes to try to position this correctly. Obviously, I need it correctly so I can get to the bolts to put my heat shield back on this side. So I'm going to position this as best I can. And then I'm going to torque these bolts down to 50 foot-pounds. Okay guys, so I just wanted to show you, this here is the heat shield. This area is what the instructions show to cut off. You're really just clearancing the hole for that bolt right there. So I just kind of put it in place. It is real thin aluminum. Made a scratch mark with the bolt, and I just used my hole saw to cut the hole right there. It makes for a little bit of a nicer, cleaner installation. So from here, I'm going to reinstall my heat shield and get the exhaust back up into place. Okay guys, this is it for part one of this video. Basically just wanted to show you guys the install procedure to get this Draw-Tite hitch installed on your Subaru Outback. Not everyone's going to be using this to tow a trailer or something. You might be just hauling bicycles or have like a small luggage rack on the back, so you won't need to use the trailer brake or the trailer wiring kit itself. So I wanted to put those two in separate videos. But as always, if you guys have any questions on what I did or how I did it, please leave me a comment below. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, guys. Bye.